been dissatisfied with the results of my smush casting of Crucible, so I'm going to try this technique called slip casting. I've been collecting broken clay and little pieces of cut-offs, and I'm adding a little extra clay that I need to break up and let dry. And then I'll show you how I put these slips together in order to make new crucibles. So we're going to try making this slip. There seems to be a lot of ways to do it. One is to get your clay really dry and turn it into a fine powder and then mix it in water. Another one is to take your clay wet and put it in a blender and mix it with water. I'm going to try this, which is something I saw, of course, on YouTube. Yeah, this is probably the world's greatest rip-off. Probably a piece of underpowered crap, but we'll try it. Cool. Let's just throw some in here. Apparently it's going to take a fair amount of mixing. Hope I don't have too much water because it's really thin. It's supposed to be thin, but I'm not sure it's supposed to be this thin. It's starting to look like something. So the slip I've seen on YouTube is made of a fine, beautiful white porcelain clay, which clearly this isn't. But oh well. So the idea is, according to what I saw, it should run off your fingers, so it doesn't, so it's too thick. So that's okay, because I got a lot more powder. I want to make it all. My thought is to make it too thick first and then thin it up. Okay, way too thick, so let's put some water in it. Well, at least the process is not messy. Still too thick. So if the internet is right, and you know a lot about that, what we're going to do is pour this into this plaster mold and just wait. And the plaster will absorb water out of the thing, and the longer you let it sit, the more water will be absorbed and the thicker the casting will become. So I want a pretty thick casting. I bet it's going to sit for a while. I made this mold, oh, I don't know, not that long ago, maybe 36 hours. It's been sitting out in the sun since then. It's pretty dry. It's probably not as dry as it could be, plus it's not huge, so it doesn't have a whole lot of water absorbing capacity, but let's see what happens here. Fill it up full and then slightly over full, according to what I watched online. Funny, I don't know if you can see, but it's only been like a minute, and the level of clay has dropped, which is cool, because it means that water is getting absorbed. Now I overfilled it. So, since I'm doing that, I figure I'll do this too. I'm much less confident in how I work a positive on this. I'm just going to I think what I'll do first is just kind of dunk it a few times and see. While we're waiting on our slip casting, let's make some powdered charcoal without toasting the coffee grinder like I did before. Ha, broke immediately. Rip off. So I poured this 15 minutes ago, and frankly, it's fascinating. I think this actually works. Who knew? It's concave because the water's getting sucked out. If you feel it down in here like this, there's a definite feeling of a little like wall forming. In fact, if I go like that, you can kind of see where the wall is. It's about half a centimeter thick. How weird is that? So I'm going to go ahead and let it go another 5 minutes and see where we are. I'd like to get a wall that's, I don't know, 3/4 of a centimeter or a centimeter thick. So I'll keep going until I get that. This is a kind of a fundamentally different process because after the first couple of dunks, you're kind of dependent on evaporation to get the water out. This is 6 or so dunks in. As you can see, it's still pretty shiny, which means it's still pretty wet. My guess is you just build it up layer on layer, and I'm not really sure how you get it unmolded because this is going to unmold because it's going to shrink. I don't know about this. I'll go ahead with dunk number 7, even though it could probably use a little more time drying. My guess is that this is just a matter of a lot of patience, whereas that's just kind of controlled by weight, and not that long of a wait. It's really kind of cool. I've let this thing sit in the mold for 30 minutes. Let's look at this one first. So, as you can see, I think that's 7, maybe 8 dunks in, and it's still quite shiny. And actually, if I put my finger on this, it comes away wet. So clearly the plaster is doing everything it can. I just think maybe I've overwhelmed the ability of that plaster to suck liquid out of clay, which I'll have to think about. Maybe I need a lot more plaster hygroscopic mass than the actual thing that I'm going to cast, so I'll think about that. So this has been in there for 30 minutes. It's actually, it feels a little moist too. There's actually, my fingers glisten a little bit when I rub it, so it's been sucking water out. Let's go ahead and dunk this stuff and see what happens when we do it. Now the instructions said to hold this for a while until it stops running, because if you don't, you'll get an unattractively drippy inside. Considering that they were using this beautiful white porcelain clay, and I'm using this nasty black crap, I'm a little less worried about the aesthetics of the situation, but I'll hold it for a minute here. It's pretty thick. I'd say it's over half a centimeter thick. That's fairly cool. What I'm going to do, well, there's some more coming out. Yuck. Probably not supposed to shake it like that. I'm just going to put this like this. We'll let it drain for a while, and then we'll come back and look at it. It's been sitting out here for, I don't know, 45 minutes. Supposed to wait until it's no longer shiny. I don't know if I could say that's no longer shiny. It's kind of shiny, but maybe it's not really shiny. Okay, never done this before, but I'm supposed to cut the top. Clearly nowhere near dry. Well, now we're just going to wait until the thing dries. My guess is that's going to take a long time. You know, this plaster wasn't 100% dry when I molded this thing, and then I just don't think it may have enough water capacity to absorb all the water that's coming off. This thing is definitely wet. I'm going to go ahead and dunk it again. We're going to leave both of them overnight. See what they look like in the morning. As you can see, I'm still slip casting. I got a new one coming. I still haven't figured out how to do that positive image. This is my first slip cast crucible, and I didn't release it very well. It didn't turn out all that pretty, but it's pretty thick. It's still quite wet and soft. I shouldn't really be holding it like this. It was cool. I'm going to do some more because I think this may have real advantages over the technique I've been using of kind of smush casting them. So I'm going to make some more and see what happens with that. This is what they call kind of a leather hard version in the sense that it's hard, but I could squish it if I wanted. If you look at it in comparison to the one that I sort of cast by smushing, it's a much better product. I think I'm going to do this from now on. It takes longer, but the product's nicer. I still need to work on it. The shape's different, right? It looks like one of those plastic cups. Why wouldn't it? But I think I can do this again. I can do it more reproducibly this way, even though it takes a few days to make one, whereas this one's more like 24 hours. But if I make 3 or 4 slip molds, I can make a whole lot of them. So I'm going to work on that. The other thing I'm going to do is work on making these tops. I learned in the first time I melted copper that I need to put a whole lot of charcoal in there and just really let it rip. And so I think I need to have tops on my crucibles. And we know that a pure graphite object will erode away fairly quickly under that kind of punishment. So I'm going to try making some larger, better tops, and I'm going to use slip casting to do that too. Because I am going to try melting some copper, and this thing isn't going to last long. Ah, look at that. Cracked. Okay, well, this goes back in the slip casting, and I'll go back to the negative technique rather than using the positive technique, because clearly that's not the way to do it. Too bad, because it looks like it was making a nice casting. Well, that'll teach me. Clearly that one's not ready to unmold yet, so I'll come back in a couple weeks and see if I can unmold that. Well, have a great day. Think about liking and subscribing. I'll be back in a couple weeks to work with the big can and some copper. Have a good day.